Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into the 14th century to explore a really mind-bending idea about prayer and mercy. It comes from a conversation between a saint and God himself, and let me tell you, it challenges our whole idea of what it means to love an enemy.
So let's start right here with this incredible quote. "Oh, loving madman." Now, this isn't some kind of insult. This is a cry of pure, unfiltered awe from St Catherine of Siena, and she's saying it to God. She is so completely overwhelmed by what she's hearing that the only way she can describe it is as a kind of divine madness.
So you have to ask, right? What on earth did God say to her? What kind of instruction was so shocking, so completely against human logic that it made her say that? Well, to figure it out, we have to look at the absolutely stunning request God made. Now, all of this comes from a book called The Dialogue, which is basically a record of these incredible conversations between St. Catherine and God. And the scene it paints is just extraordinary.
So in this dialogue, God doesn't just give her a gentle suggestion or a nice piece of advice. No, he gives her a direct and frankly jaw-dropping command about who she needs to be praying for.
Just listen to the language here. God isn't just commanding. He's actively asking for her help. He wants her tears, her sweat, her spiritual effort, and all for the very people who are offending him. And that one word right there, beg, that's the real heart of the paradox. Think about it. The all-powerful creator of the universe, who needs absolutely nothing from anyone, is begging a human to pray for sinners so that he has a reason to show them mercy. I mean, that just turns our entire understanding of power completely on its head. But wait, it doesn't stop with just general sinners. The request goes even further, into territory that most of us would find, well, pretty radical. You can almost hear Catherine's own amazement here as she repeats it back. You know, it's one thing to pray for people who are lost or confused, but it's a whole other level to be told to pray for your active persecutors, for God's own enemies, with the specific goal of getting them mercy.
And this is where the contrast just becomes so clear. Our human instinct for justice is usually about punishment, right? The wicked should be punished. Enemies should get what they deserve. But the divine instruction here is the exact opposite. It says, no, you need to actively step in with your prayers, not to call for their punishment, but for their pardon.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds completely illogical, like that madness Catherine was talking about. But believe it or not, this seemingly crazy idea is actually built on a really solid and profound theological logic. See, this isn't just some random command that God pulls out of a hat. According to the dialogue, it's the natural result of how God's mercy works in the world. It's all rooted in these core principles that he actually explains to Catherine.
So let's break down this divine logic. It really stands on 4 pillars. First, God's mercy is infinite, and it softens all of his justice. Second, prayer has real power. It can actually constrain divine wrath. Third, charity, love, can't have any limits. It has to be for everyone, no exceptions. And finally, praying for others, intercession, is the specific tool, the remedy, God gives us to appease his own justice. So, we've dug into this wild divine request. We've looked at the logic behind it. What's the big takeaway from this conversation that happened almost 700 years ago? It really boils down to these 4 things. First, God himself personally begs for it. It's his explicit wish. Second, our prayers are literally the tool he chooses to use to deliver mercy. Third, those prayers are the way to soften divine justice. And last but not least, there are 0 exceptions. Charity is for everyone, especially our enemies. And that brings us right back to where we started. Now we can totally get why Catherine cried out, "Oh, loving madman." It's that moment of awe when you realize God's love is so huge, so illogical by our standards, that he sets up a system where he literally begs his friends to help him save his enemies. And in the end, this whole thing leaves us with a really deep and challenging question to think about. If God begs for prayers for his enemies, if that's the divine standard, what does that ask of us in our own lives with our own enemies? That's a powerful thought to chew on.